This episode is sponsored by Circle K. Get the most savings on every gallon when you fuel with the Circle K Fleet Card. Learn more at CircleKFleetCards.com.
Hello, I'm Chris Brown, Fleet Group Editor at Bobbitt, and welcome to the next episode of Fast Forward interview series. Fast Forward is about connecting with leaders in fleet, tech, and automotive to show what the future holds for fleets of all types. In this episode, I interview Henry Kayler, Fleet Manager for a leading renewable energy manufacturer. Henry and I will discuss the challenges of electrifying a commercial fleet. We'll talk about choosing the duty cycles that work best to switch to EVs, lessons learned when planning EV infrastructure, new EV models on the way that will work well in fleets, and the challenge of reaching sustainability targets. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the Fleet Forward YouTube channel so you don't miss future episodes of Fast Forward. And hey, feel free to drop us a comment on the channel. Okay, let's get into it. Well, Henry, thanks for joining us for this edition of Fast Forward.
Perfect. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, well, let's just start with the makeup of your fleet. And can you talk about your company's sustainability targets?
Sure. The makeup of our fleet, I have approximately the responsibility for the US and Canada. In the US, we have about, I would say 900 to 1,000 light duty vehicles. Ranging from SUVs like Equinoxes, 1500s, 2500s, 3500s with service bodies. In Canada, we have approximately 300 vehicles. And those are less on the SUV side, more on the more rugged, let's say 2500s, 3500s with their service bodies. And so we've been in the middle of this EV conversion, stemming from a corporate goal to become carbon neutral as a company by 2030. And obviously, with about 30% of the carbon coming from our service vehicles out of that entire goal, the ICE engine replacement with EVs was a low-hanging fruit on that tree. So that's where the goal comes from, and we have a goal of with our vehicles to be 100% EV or renewable by 2025.
Wow. Okay. And as you're a national fleet, I understand you've got drivers in multiple scenarios, multiple areas. That's a lot to consider when making the switch to EVs from ICE vehicles and whether it's really going to work with them. Can you just take us into your decision-making process on that?
Yeah, I think the first challenge anybody at this point or previous to this point in time would come up against is the availability of vehicles in the market. If you know about EVs, you know they've started primarily with sedans, maybe smaller vehicles to start off with, and kind of left the utility vehicles and say trucks for the future, which is coming up very soon. We can talk about that, but really isn't a good solution for a light duty to heavy duty pickup truck at a economic point at this point in time. That will change very quickly, I believe. But that's where, we started off with what vehicles are available that we can place into our fleet at this point. So we have a couple of different workforce scenarios out in the field at this point. One is more of a managerial role that doesn't have to go off-road. It doesn't have to get into situations where they might get stuck in some bad geography situation. And that's where we started off was with our management, because we really had a very limited amount of vehicles that would get us to our EV target. Phase two obviously will be the higher utility vehicles that can go off road, can maybe carry a trailer, have some payload, all of that.
So when it comes to planning out infrastructure, I mean, that seems to be the elephant in the room, that when you talk to folks that have been through it, they're just give you the 1,000-yard stare like, yeah, that was harder than I thought. Any learnings from infrastructure build out?
Wow, yeah, there's a lot of learnings. I mean, so first off is, you're really moving to EVs to reduce the cost, not just the CO2, but also fuel cost is, and maintenance are a big piece of the cost savings of moving over. And it helps offset possibly a cap cost, an increased cap cost of purchasing a new EV vehicle. So with that being said, the infrastructure piece is interesting because it's often overlooked and how expensive it can be to place chargers into either an office or at a home. So there's different aspects there too. So where are those EVs going to be homed at night? Are they going to an individual's house? Does that person even own a house? Maybe they have an apartment. All right. So taking all of that into consideration while you're looking at the infrastructure, you can find some really good quality, low cost charging systems that are out there. But when you're going to go at a utility kind of scale where you're going to be looking to charge 30 trucks in the same location at the same time, you're going to want to have something, a good mix of, let's say, level 2 and fast chargers at those locations. There'll always be somebody who does not get their plug in completely and ends up not having enough charge to go through the whole day. So you're going to want to have some kind of emergency backup. And if you don't have that, you're going to rely heavily probably on the public charging infrastructure, fast chargers and all of that, which is not a bad thing. But the cost for public charging is 2 to 3 times the amount of private charging, especially off peak hours. It gets quite inexpensive to charge during those times versus a public charger.
A couple quick questions before we wrap up. One, anything in hindsight that you could share with fleets who are just beginning their electrification journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fleets that are starting off on their electrical journey, they want to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, or at least a plan is in place. Really think about if you have the opportunity to place these on non-public chargers, but don't give up on the public charging. That's kind of a backdrop, right? I mean, it's a backstop that you can use in a dire need. But if anybody's working in utilities or infrastructure, something to think about, I would think, is what happens when you're responsible for turning the electricity back on, but the electricity is off right now and you have electric vehicles, right? So that might be a big niche coming up soon, which would be off-grid electrification of vehicles, right? Some kind of battery storage system that you can charge these vehicles up, because those people are responsible for driving around and getting the electricity back on for residents, right? So it'd be most important to make sure that those vehicles have some kind of backup to that. And then just make sure that you budget correctly, because there is quite a bit of cost that comes with the infrastructure, and it's I'm sure the costs will go down over time, but the budgeting is a big piece for fleets, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of considerations to try to get to carbon neutral. If you can't get there with the vehicles per se in the time frame, I mean, we've got considerations like cold weather climates. Gosh, Will solid state batteries solve for that? I don't know. Is there a plan for like carbon offsets type thing or ways to get there without electrification?
There is a plan for most companies. Our company came out saying that we're going to be carbon neutral without carbon offsets. So
Okay.
that is even more impressive, I think, right?
Yeah.
to not have that. So we're really looking to, push the envelope, I think, to the point where we're really not looking for an easy way out. We're looking to get it done very cleanly so we can be proud of what we do at the end of the day.
Sure. Well, hey, Henry, thank you so much for joining us on Fast Forward.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.